Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and as I promised in yesterday's video, I wanted to put together a brief recap of part 2 of Jeff Jacobs' collection that was sold on Hakes last night. As usual, there were some surprises on the upper end as well as on the lower end. That just is kind of a natural byproduct of having so many incredible items for sale all at once. And I felt like Hakes did a great job of promoting this. When you look at how Hakes has been promoting this Jeff Jacobs collection versus maybe some of the other auction houses that are out there. I mean, Heritage, as you saw in yesterday's video, they've got a pretty nice auction going. I would have never known about it at all if I had just hadn't randomly gone on to Heritage to look up something else. I was like, oh, there's an auction going on. So again, I'm not trying to toot Hakes' horn, but I mean, they've done a good job of promoting this. I have seen tons of emails and social media related to this auction ending. And Jeff, by the way, has done a pretty good job himself. He's been advertising on his own Facebook page. I'm friends with him on Facebook. And, credit to Jeff, 10% of every auction proceeds is going to charity. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible what he's doing with a lot of the proceeds as it relates to this. So, I need to give one shout out before we finally dig into some of the sales I wanted to cover, and that's to Four Eyes Vader. He recently increased his Patreon support, so thank you, Four Eyes Vader, for doing that. Very generous, and thanks to all my Patreons. Okay, so we're going to start off with the 12-back A Darth Vader AFA 80 double telescoping saber, mint on card. So this is a mint on card double telescoping saber Darth Vader. Oh, let's just start off with something really small, shall we? Good Lord. So here's a reference. All right, so we had a double telescoping Obi-Wan that was AFA 85 from Jeff's collection that sold for $105 in January. And then we had the AFA 85 double telescoping saber Luke Skywalker that sold for $84,370. And this is just the fourth double telescoping specimen they've offered. Their last example was an AFA 75 that was sold over 5 years ago. And so this one is population 4, Darth Vader's double telescoping saber, and it sold for $130,000. I'm not particularly surprised by that, to be honest with you, just because it is a Vader. And, the Obi-Wan double telescoping saber, more on Obi-Wan in a little while. But, that one was an AFA 85 that sold at $105. That to me is starting to look more and more like a bargain. That one that sold in January. The AFA 85 Obi-Wan for $105 in January. That feels like a bargain now, looking back at it, given what this one sold for. Maybe maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. This is certainly not anything that I would, that I would have any clue as to what the real value is. But 130 feels like a big number or a fair number. I mean, that's a huge number. It's a much bigger number, really, than I even expected. And congrats to Jeff on that sale. Here was a great deal. I thought this was an AFA 80 early bird set. Now, admittedly, this is the non-double telescoping saber Luke baggie. This is just a standard Luke inside. Standard saber, as it says here. And that sold for $5,900, which, to me feels like a pretty good deal for an AFA 80 early bird kit, archival case. Box got a 75. That probably also held the price down, having that 75 some grade. But to me, given what the double telescoping saber Luke Farm Boy baggies, when combined with this set in high grade, go for over $10,000 easily, to get the non-double telescoping saber Luke baggie version for $5,900, that feels like a very, very good deal there. Here was an AFA 70 telescoping Ben Kenobi, loose graded. That sold for $9,800. And that feels like a very fair price to me. I know it's at the upper end of the value code, but Obi-Wan is very tough to find with this saber. And I've seen higher grades even on. I saw like an AF. I think it was an AFA 80 or 80 plus. I don't think it was an 85. It was an 80 or an 80 plus that Rebel Hideout had on Facebook, and he got $29,000 for that one. So, you know, again, it's a 70 grade, so it's significantly lower in grade. But to get that for $9,800, that feels like a very fair deal to me. Great looking item. I mean, that's just a Grail type of item too. Here was, I think I pulled up the wrong one by accident. This was the Jawa 12 back, but I wanted to pull up the one with the vinyl cape. So here it is right here. And we'll come back to that full list here in a second. But now, admittedly, this one had staining to the cape for the vinyl cape Jawa. It was an AFA 85 12A vinyl cape Jawa. Obviously, if it didn't have any staining to the cape, it would probably be higher. But that one still sold for $18,000, which I thought was, you know, probably, I mean, I'm just giving you my personal opinion. I think even if I had the money, I don't think I would have bid that high on this personally, just because of the staining to the cape. You know, I didn't think it would go that high personally, but, you know, admittedly, you're getting a pretty rare item, whether it's got staining or not. And it's not like the staining was that bad. You can see there, it's just got some faint shadowing going on to it. Maybe the cape has got some discoloration all the way around it. I can't tell. It might have frosting. I don't know. But if this didn't have those issues with the figure score of 90, you know, obviously that doesn't apply anymore. This is more like a 75. You know, if you didn't have any of that, you probably would be well into the $25,000 to $3,000, or $25,000 to $30,000 number. So that was pretty cool. This I thought was a great deal as well. It was the value code on that was 10 to 20,000. This was an AFA 80 punched example for Boba Fett on the 21 back C, and that one sold for $7,100. That feels like a great deal to me. If I'm the winning bidder on that one, I mean, that is a great deal. And again, it had a 75 subscore. What do we talk about in my Hakes videos? Target these types of items, because the really big money collectors, the ones that can say, yes, I'll take 12 Lamborghinis, please. They're not going to buy this, you know, because of the 75 subscore on the card. And that's where us peons, you know, even a peon that has better bank account than I do, they could buy this kind of thing and do really well with it long term from an investment perspective, in my opinion. To get a 21 back C overall 80 grade Boba Fett, that's an early Boba Fett. I mean, that's a great deal at $7,100. That's, you know, 30% below the low end of the value code. Whoever bought that, you're doing really well on that. That is a great buy. And I think, you know, that one will hold its value very well, if not appreciate in value. Here was an early, the action display stand. This one had the picture box. So this is not the mail away version. This is the one that had a special offer sticker on there and was available at big box retailers apparently. And it's very rare. The value code was $5,000 to $10,000. The final winning bid was $16,000. Think about what the Empire Strikes Back version of the action display stand would go for when this one goes for $16,500. I mean, that's got to be just a massive number, which I think we covered one recently. I don't remember what it sold for. Here was a Millennium Falcon AFA 75. Now, again, the tape had separated on this one, which they noted. You know, you can see there that the tape had separated on this one. Graded 75, and that one still went for 11.8. That to me again feels like a high, you know, too high of a number. I wouldn't have paid that personally. But there are some other examples. Now, I personally think they should not have compared it to other factory sealed examples in the item description. No offense, Hake. That's just my personal opinion. This one is, you know, has tape separation at the bottom left corner, which they did note in all fairness to them. They're saying it still remains factory sealed though. So maybe that's why they can do that, you know. So, you know, I guess the other side of it is still factory sealed. But they did show that there's separation on that one side. I don't know how AFA accounts for that, whether this would now be qualified or not. I'm assuming not, since it's apparently, you know, still remains factory sealed on one side. It also did have a half-inch crack in the bottom left corner. So what? I mean, who cares about that? This item is so big, it's going to happen with these kind of big items. But, you know, that's why it went so low relative to the value code, but it still went a little higher than I would have even expected, given those defects post-grading. But next up, here was a big one. The value code on this was 10 to 20, and I was like, 10 to 20? You know, this is a testament to Hakes' estimations of values, because I didn't think it would even hit 10. But it sold for $21,240, and that's an AFA 85 original. You know, this is the second version without the long play logo, but this is the Darth Vader's tie intercept. I don't know if they had a long play logo version of this. I assume they did. I don't know these early Kenner vehicles very well, but 21,240, big number on that one. That was huge, and Hakes was right on the money there in terms of the high end of the value code. A pretty rare transition ESB 21 back Jawa. The Jawa and the Stormtrooper, I believe, are probably the toughest ones to find. Maybe Boba Fett, I don't know. But this one sold for $2,500 when the value code was $700 to $1,000. I would have said, okay, yeah, that's probably, I probably would have bid, or if I had given you a value estimation on this one, I would have said $1,500. That would have been my number. That would have been, you know, let's say Chris had this over at Rogue 5 Toys. I would have said $1,500 for this. It sold for $25.96. So clearly that's a pretty rare item there. The 31 back B Luke Bespin AFA 85 sold for $3,000. Big number there, right in the middle of the value code estimation, but you know, it's an AFA 85. That's a pretty special item there. Here's another one that went towards the upper end of the value code despite the discoloration to the ESB Boba Fett, which we talk about in my market updates all the time, how ESB Boba Fett's always discolor. And that's a classic example of that. It's still sold for $4,500. And in all fairness, the AFA labels is a 75 for the figure score, so it was appropriately graded. But wow, big number for a punched example with the degradation to that one. The Hoth Stormtrooper, I mean, I picked out just some random stuff that I thought were pretty big numbers or interesting things to talk about. This was a 47 back free 4-line offer, not particularly easy to find. None higher according to the AFA population report. I don't know how many were in an 85 grade. But that one sold for $3,200. Huge number, huge number for the it's not a debut card. I mean, the debut is the 31A. So that's a massive number, but the Hoth Stormtrooper is the Hoth Stormtrooper. I mean, that's just a very special item. Next up was the special action figure set, the Empire Strikes Back box version with the Imperial Commander Dengar and the AT-AT driver. And that one sold for $5,700. It did have yellowing to the blister, which probably kept the price down, but pretty special item there, not very commonly seen. Here was another very good deal that fell underneath the radar. I don't know how this one went so cheap, but this is that 6-pack ESB baggie set that, you know, just that box is usually really expensive. I think we covered one that sold just the box, but this one is very special, and it sold for $38.95. The value code was 5 to 10, which I would have said was right on the money. I would have said $7,500 all day long for this. $38.95 is highway robbery. Someone got a great deal on that one. Wow, unbelievable deal on that one for those that collect baggies, because that is a very tough item to get, and AFA 85s for all the baggies, 90 for one of the baggies. Holy moly, $38.95. What a deal on that one. Here was an AFA 85 15-inch IG88. Y'all know that this one was going to go for a lot of money. Even I am shocked by that, though. $10,000. That's a big number, but still at the low end of the value code. I mean, that's a very rare item, very coveted from the 12-inch line. Only 8 examples are graded AFA 85. Again, for what it is, $10,000 doesn't feel that terrible to me. Here was a very rare item that really blew apart the value code. This was a large catalog, and it included the mail-away Boba Fett baggie, but it wasn't in a box. It came in an envelope, and it had the description of Boba Fett, a very large catalog. Look how big that catalog is. Plus the original mailer envelope. And this one, there's only 5 examples in total that have been graded by AFA, with only 2 examples in an 85 grade. And again, the value code was $2,000 to $5,000, which I was like, okay, yeah, that's probably about right. I don't know. It sold for $22,000. $22,000. Holy moly. So Jeff did really well on some items and then maybe not so well on other items, and it about evens out, right? You know, I hope he's happy with these sales, because I mean, that is an incredible sale there. And we've got some more, even more ridiculous ones coming up here in a second, but that one was pretty wild. An AFA 40 squid head non-burgundy cape version. This is the only and single highest graded example according to the population report, which is fascinating to me. I did not realize that this is the only one that's ever been graded by AFA. And the value code was 5 to 10. That's about what I would have guessed. I probably wouldn't have even guessed that high. But, you know, what makes it rare is that this is the Regresso negative back there. So, you know, it's the early squid head non-burgundy cape. It sold for $15,600. And as crazy as that one was, I think this one's actually even crazier. So this is a Regresso reuse, which is a fairly, you know, it's a reuse. Who cares? But it's rare. You know, it's only 2 examples in total have been graded by AFA, and it sold for $14,000, or about 40% more than the high end of the value code. So there were some Lily Letty collectors out there that were seeking these out, and they got into some bidding wars. But wow, just 2 incredible Lily Letty sales. Now this is the one that really, I have no idea what's going on with this, but it's pretty crazy. This is a typical U.S. boxed Jabba the Hutt action playset graded AFA 85. I would have said $2,000. That's my guess. I mean, you know, because it's an 85, okay, let's say $2,000 for that. You know, again, AFA 80s for this on eBay all day long, what, $1,000 max? This one sold for $38,940. And then, you know, again, the value code was right. That's about what I would have guessed, $2,000. I didn't know that, by the way, when I just threw those numbers out. So in all fairness, I didn't look at that value code and then come back and pretend like I knew it. But $38,000 for that. Unbelievable. There's always one or two like that in every Hakes auction. And this happens to be the one this time where I'm like, what is going on? What is going on? So there's only 9 examples graded AFA 85 according to the population report, which that really surprises me that there's only 85 of them. That there's only 9 of them graded 85. Excuse me. But $38,000. Wow, what a crazy number there. That's, again, 2 people that really had to have an 85 in their collection that were willing to just go way above fair market value. And we've talked about, remember, we had a 32B Yoda that sold a while back for like $16,000. There's always one. There's always one where you're shaking your head, but that is the one for this one. That's got to be a record for the Jabba the Hutt action playset. This is one where I was really curious to see where it go, because the Power of the Force Kenner Canada yak face has been going down in value a lot. We've talked about that. We've seen some AFA 85s on eBay that sold for, I think, $8,500. There was one down in Australia that was an AFA 85 Power of the Force Kenner Canada yak face that sold at auction for $8,500 maybe 6 months ago on eBay. So here was an AFA 90 single score as well. So it's an older grade. And I was like, I don't know what this is going to go for. And I would have guessed 15. That would have been my guess. I don't know. I don't even remember. Now that I'm getting ready to scroll up, I don't even remember what this one went for, to be honest with you. It went for $23,737. So again, they were right. You know, Hakes was right on the money. $23,737 for that one. Unbelievable. So this one there's only 8 examples graded AFA 90. But, you know, 1 of 8, it's not like the end of the world, super rare, but I am a little surprised that it was able to get to $23,000 in the current market environment, just given that yak faces in general have seemed to come back down in price on the Power of the Force Kenner Canada card. And that is really it. I mean, you know, here's the full list of items. I didn't total them up. I'm sure that the guys over at Five Idiots Talking Toys will do a total for these, but just a massive, massive sale for part 2. Job well done by Hakes. And obviously there were G.I. Joes in here that sold for big money, and Thundercats, GoBots, Transformers. I mean, just an unbelievable collection. Mask, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the real Ghostbusters. So he truly had a one-of-a-kind collection that will go down in the annals of history of just being, you know, for a single person to have all of this stuff is just completely mind-blowing. But what an awesome auction. And congratulations to those of you that were able to win something. I hope you enjoyed kind of my take on some of the different items that sold. Be sure to leave me a like if you did enjoy this content. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.